At 2 in the morning, I heard the front door click open, slow, tentative, the kind of quiet movement that screams guilt louder than any confession. I didn't move from the couch. I'd been sitting there for hours, the TV long since off, the only light in the room coming from the glow of the aquarium in the corner. The fish inside drifted peacefully, completely unaware of the storm outside their glass world. I wasn't angry. Not in the way you'd expect. I wasn't even surprised. Just hollow. Like something had gone numb a while ago and I'd only now realized the sensation was permanent. The door closed. Softly. Ava stepped inside, heels in her hand, her gait slightly off balance. She stood there for a second, eyes adjusting to the dark, probably expecting me to be asleep. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from too much dancing or too many drinks, but the kind that follows bad decisions. Same outfit she left in, high-waisted jeans, leather jacket, that white top with the off-shoulder cut she knows I like. But her hair was tousled, makeup smeared just enough to hint at more than just a long night. And there, right at the curve of her neck, a faint reddish mark. Smudged, not from lipstick exactly, but unmistakable if you've ever seen someone get kissed too long, too hard. Her eyes met mine, and for a beat, the room was silent. "Oh," she said, blinking. "You're still up." No apology. No surprise either. Just a flat observation, like I was the one intruding. "I couldn't sleep," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was too even. Ava slid her heels back on the mat and casually dropped her keys in the bowl by the door. "Girls' night turned into girls' and some friends' night," she said with a shrug, moving toward the kitchen. "You know how it goes." I didn't say anything. I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. Not to cable, I switched inputs and opened the security camera app. She stopped mid-step. I selected the front door camera and hit play. There it was. 11:47 p.m. Ava standing by a black Audi, giggling. Leaning into a guy, tall, dark jacket, hand on her waist like it belonged there. They kissed once. Then again. And again. Long, slow kisses like they'd done it before, like this was a routine. Then they walked inside together. She was holding his hand. His other hand was on the small of her back, steering her. Like this was his place. Ava didn't flinch. Didn't gasp. She just tilted her head, a lazy smirk forming. "Oh my God," she said, like I was being ridiculous. "Seriously? You're checking the footage now?" I said nothing. "That's Mason," she added, walking toward me. "He gave me a ride." "That's it." I watched her, the way her face was completely relaxed. It was rehearsed. Smooth. "Mason?" I repeated. "We've known each other since middle school," she said. "He's like a brother to me." "You're blowing this out of proportion." I raised the volume on the video just a notch. I could hear them laugh as they walked in, his voice low and familiar. Ava looked up at the ceiling like I was the one being unreasonable. "I was drunk," she said with a little sigh. "It was a stupid joke, Ethan. He was teasing me." I told him to stop. I paused the footage on the kiss. She crossed her arms. "So what? You're gonna act like you don't trust me now?" I looked at her for a long time. The kind of long that makes people uncomfortable, but Ava didn't flinch. She was too good at this. Too calm. That was the part that hit me the hardest, not the kiss, not the mark on her neck, not even the way she walked in like I hadn't been waiting in the dark for hours, but how calm she was. Like she'd expected to get caught eventually and already made peace with it. "Nothing happened," she said. "It was just a ride. You're taking this way out of context." I didn't respond. I just let the silence stretch. She walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. Ice clinked gently against the sides. Casual. Too casual. She leaned against the counter, sipping like we weren't in the middle of something irreversible. "Do you want me to call him?" she asked. "We can clear this up right now." I didn't answer. Because I didn't care. She offered me a tight smile, defensive, almost smug. "I guess if you want to play detective, you should also know I was home before too. Maybe instead of spying on me, you could have just asked." I turned off the screen and set the remote down. The room felt colder than before, like even the air had turned against us. She went quiet then. Maybe she realized I wasn't going to argue. That there wasn't going to be some explosive fight where I yell and she cries and we both say things we regret. No. That part of me, the one that needed explanations, apologies, reassurance, it had already died. Ava stood there, waiting for something. A reaction, a spark, maybe even forgiveness. But I gave her none. After a moment, she scoffed, muttered something under her breath, and walked past me into the bedroom. She didn't even close the door. I stayed on the couch, staring at the blank screen. The thing is, betrayal doesn't hit like a car crash. The slower, it builds. It grows roots in your doubt and blossoms in your silence. And right then, In the stillness of our living room, something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry. I was awake. Sleep didn't come that night. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, Ava's quiet breathing just a few feet away, calm and steady, like nothing had happened, like we weren't standing at the edge of something unspoken and ugly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that camera footage on loop, the kiss, the walk, the easy way she lied to my face like she'd done it before. And then my brain did what it always does when it can't make sense of the present. It started digging through the past. I started remembering things I had ignored. Not just forgot, ignored. Chosen not to see. Like the time she went on that retreat with her office team and I found a boutique wine bar receipt in her coat pocket. 2 entrees, dessert, and a bottle of Merlot. "Oh," she had said without missing a beat. "My boss gave me his card for dinner that night. Lucky, right?" Or the weekend she was supposed to be in Napa with her old college friends. But when I tried to FaceTime her, the call went unanswered. Twice. Then she texted, "Bad signal. Hiking. Love you." I didn't think much of it at the time. But now, that whole trip felt like a cardboard cutout. Flimsy, too clean, no real edges. And then there was the time I picked her up from work and saw a pair of men's boxer briefs in the trunk when loading groceries. I held them up like some surreal prop in a crime scene. "Oh my God!" She laughed. Too quickly. "Those are Mason's. He did laundry here a couple weeks ago. Remember?" I didn't. But I nodded. Because that's what I did, I nodded. I smiled. I believed her. Every time. Now, it all stacked up like bad evidence in a cold case finally going warm. I got up around 6, too restless to keep pretending. The sunrise was gray and indifferent, casting dull shadows across the kitchen tiles. I poured myself coffee and sat at the table, letting the steam hit my face. The silence was unbearable. Not because it was empty, but because it was full. Full of unasked questions. Full of suspicions I'd swept under the rug for months. Ava came out around 7, yawning, hair pulled into a messy bun. "Morning," she said, like she hadn't shattered my trust with a smirk and a shrug. "Morning," I said back. My voice was normal. Too normal. She didn't say anything else. Just grabbed a protein bar and started checking her phone. It was always on silent now. Face down, screen dimmed. I remembered when it used to light up with my name. Now it was just part of the table decor. We sat there for a few minutes in that painful pretend domesticity. I watched her thumb scroll through something with her coffee in hand. Totally composed, like last night hadn't even scratched her surface. "What's on the schedule today?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Meetings. Lunch with a client. Might run a few errands before heading home," she said, barely looking up. I nodded. Just another normal day. But I didn't believe her. By mid-morning, I was sitting in my home office pretending to review reports for a new eco-finance partnership I'd been courting. But all I could focus on was this creeping, rising pressure in my chest. It wasn't jealousy. Not really. It was the suspicion that my life, the one I'd built so carefully, so loyally, had become a stage play where I was the only one who didn't know my lines. So I started testing things. I asked to see her calendar. "Trying to sync up for dinner," I said. She showed it to me, no hesitation. Nothing unusual. But it felt edited. There was a dinner entry labeled Client Trendtech, which sounded legitimate. But I knew her accounts and Trendtech had frozen spending last quarter. They weren't dining out. They were laying people off. I started searching emails. Quietly. Not her inbox. She'd changed that password months ago and chalked it up to a security reset. No, I searched mine. She used to forward things to me. Flight confirmations, dinner reservations, invoice copies for tax season. I dug through my archives and found one from March. A hotel reservation. 2 nights. Palm Springs. The name on the reservation wasn't hers. It was under Marla Jenkins. But that was Ava's burner name. A joke name she used when ordering silly takeout or booking yoga classes so she wouldn't get spammed. She even used it once at a karaoke bar to sign up anonymously. Why use it for a hotel? I clicked the confirmation and scanned through. 2 nights. King Suite. Spa services included. One guest. Except it wasn't one guest. I knew better now. I called the hotel. Played dumb. Said I'd lost the itinerary from my wife's surprise trip. The concierge was cheerful, professional. Yes, Ms. Jenkins stayed with us in March. Lovely weekend. Mr. Ramsey was a wonderful guest. Very polite. I almost dropped the phone. Ramsey. I'd heard that name before. Instagram, maybe? I checked. Ava followed someone named Trent Ramsey. Fitness trainer. Investment advisor. Wannabe entrepreneur with exactly the kind of curated, six-pack lifestyle Ava rolled her eyes at or pretended to. I scrolled through his page. Sunsets. Protein shakes. Crypto quotes. And there, a story highlight from March, Palm Springs weekend. Fire, it was just a **T of wine glasses and a pool view, but my stomach turned. The same pool Ava had posted back in March with a caption about me time and detox. I closed the app. It wasn't about the pictures. It was the lies. The pattern. The way it all formed a mosaic I couldn't unsee now. It wasn't random. It was coordinated. Each lie like a puzzle piece dropped casually on the floor, trusting I'd never take the time to gather them all. But I had time now. And I wasn't the same guy I was 6 months ago, the guy who trusted her implicitly, who didn't question the gaps in her stories or the vagueness of her schedule. I wasn't going to yell or accuse. I wasn't even going to ask. I was going to know. That night when she got home, she tossed her purse on the counter and kicked off her heels. Long day, she said, sighing. I smiled. Want a drink? She blinked, a little surprised by my calm. Sure. We poured 2 glasses of wine. Sat on the couch. She told me about a client pitch that went off script. I nodded. Asked a few questions. Pretended to care. I watched her laugh, watched her gesture with her hands. She was good at this. Brilliant, even. A performance without cracks. But her eyes didn't crinkle the way they used to. Her voice didn't pause in the same places. Somewhere inside her, she knew I knew. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she was too confident. Too used to lying. Either way, I didn't argue. I didn't confront. I just watched. Because something in me had shifted permanently, like a lens had fallen off and now everything was in brutal, awful focus. The woman next to me wasn't the one I fell in love with. And I wasn't the man who would keep pretending to believe her. The next morning I woke up different. Not just tired, hollow. Like the emotional scaffolding I'd used to hold this relationship up had finally snapped. I wasn't confused anymore. I was clear. The lies weren't little. The pieces fit too perfectly now. I knew what I had to do, and I knew it needed to happen without drama. No yelling. No confrontation. Just facts. So I started with the facts. Ava had once insisted we set up joint banking for transparency. At the time, it sounded like trust. In hindsight, it was access. I logged in and pulled the last 6 months of transactions. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, a dinner here, a hotel there, but what I found made my chest tighten. For wire transfers all to the same name, Trent Ramsey. Not small either. $800. Then $1,200. Then $1,750. Then a final one, $3,000. Each one spread out just enough to seem innocuous on their own. But stacked together? It was a pattern. A breadcrumb trail of betrayal. The name was familiar now. Trent Ramsey. I'd seen him on Ava's Instagram buried in her friends from back home list. I remembered vaguely photos of a ski trip 2 winters ago, him tagged in a group photo at a winery, the 2 of them standing too close in one picture that she said was just a joke. Now I knew better. I searched Trent online. Public records. Business affiliations. Social media? Nothing much at first, mostly fitness nonsense and generic finance buzzwords. But eventually, I found a mailing address tied to a wire transfer, 18, Tenley Place, Unit 804. A downtown high-rise, one of those modern buildings with keycard elevators and valet-only parking. I stared at the address. Clicked through photos of the building online. Rooftop pool. Designer lobby. Sleek kitchens. The kind of place you don't rent unless you're trying to impress someone. Or hide something. I needed to see it for myself. I threw on a hoodie and jeans, grabbed my old work messenger bag, and drove downtown. The building was everything I expected: polished, impersonal, expensive. I walked in through the side entrance, claiming to be from Alto Logistics, a made-up courier service. I carried an empty shoebox like it held the cure for cancer. Security barely blinked. Unit 804, I said. The guard pointed to the elevator. Up there, take a left. That was it. No ID. No signature. Just a uniformed nod and a straight path into the lion's den. 8th floor. The hallway was silent and smelled like cedar and money. I found 804. The door was slightly ajar. Not wide open, just off the latch. Maybe someone had stepped out in a hurry, maybe they were careless. Either way, I didn't knock. I pushed. The apartment was sunlit and clean, all sharp lines and glass accents. Too clean. Lived in but unloved. I stepped inside. No one noticed. The sound hit me first. A soft laugh. Then a voice, hers. "Oh my God, stop," she said, playfully. I turned the corner and saw her. Ava. On the bed. Wrapped in a sheet, but unmistakably nude beneath it. Sitting beside her was Trent, shirtless, smirking, drink in hand. The kind of smirk you only wear when you think you've won. I didn't freeze. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I just reached into my bag and pulled out the small, square box I'd brought with me. The engagement ring. The one I'd been saving for our trip next month. The one she said she couldn't wait to wear. I walked over to the nightstand, set the box down gently, and looked at her. Ava's smile dropped instantly. She sat up, the sheet clutched to her chest. "Ethan, what are you?" I didn't speak. Trent looked between us, clearly not recognizing me. "Who the hell is this?" he asked, like I was just a pizza guy who walked in too far. I didn't answer him either. Instead, I looked around the room. On the floor was the same navy suitcase Ava always used for her nature retreats. The one she'd packed for Big Sur, for Tahoe, for that fake conference in Seattle. It was open now. Half unpacked. Her favorite sweater on the back of a chair. Her book, the one with the hollowed-out inside she once used to prank me, now holding something else, a stack of printed spreadsheets. Company logos I recognized from her job. A USB drive rested on top. That's when everything shifted. This wasn't just about S***X. It wasn't just about betrayal. This was a setup. I stepped back toward the door. Ava was trying to speak, to explain, to deflect. Her hands moved nervously like she was conducting a silent orchestra of excuses. But I was done listening. I walked out without saying a word. The hallway felt colder now, the silence heavier. The elevator ride down was long and slow, like the building knew I wasn't the same man who'd come up. Back in my car, I sat there with the engine off. My hands were still. My breath steady. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I started to plan. Back home, the first thing I checked was the safe. Inside were documents related to a multi-million-dollar green energy investment I'd been working on for over a year. A confidential partnership pitch with several firms, one of which, ironically, Ava's father had recently joined as a board advisor. Or at least, that's what I thought. I opened the safe. The folders were gone. Not all of them, just the ones tied to the fund. The main USB drive was missing too. Panic started to rise in my chest, but I buried it. I dug through my laptop backups, confirmed the dates the files were last accessed. Everything tracked until last week. Then, nothing. Someone had wiped the trail. Ava knew the code to the safe. She was the only other person with access. I sat down at my desk and opened a new email draft. Not to her. Not to Trent. To Logan, my older brother. Retired FBI. Now private security consultant. He always said if I ever suspected something shady, I should call him first, not the police. My subject line was simple: need a favor. Quiet and fast. Within an hour, he called. "You good?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not even close." "What happened?" "I think someone's been leaking information from my firm," I said. "And I think I know who." I gave him the name. Trent Ramsey. "Hold on," he said. A few minutes passed. Then, yeah, this guy's got history. Worked for a rival firm, Green Arrow Capital. Fired in 2020 for suspicious trades. No charges filed. Went off the grid. Popped up last year with a different LLC. They do consulting. Real vague? Sound familiar? I felt the floor shift under me. "Yeah," I said. "Too familiar." "You need me to run him?" "No," I said. "Not yet. But I need everything you can get on his contacts. Especially anything tied to Green Arrow or Ava." There was silence. "You think she's involved?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know what I thought anymore. All I knew was that Ava hadn't just lied to me. She'd played me. And I wasn't going to be the fool who stayed quiet. That night, I stood at the window of our apartment watching the lights flicker across the skyline. I thought about all the late nights I stayed up waiting for her, all the dinners that went cold, all the moments I blamed myself for her distance. And I realized something. It wasn't just that she betrayed me. It was that she'd used me. Used my trust. My schedule. My love. Used it as a cover. But she wasn't going to get away with it. Not now. Not ever. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But this time, it wasn't dread that kept me up. It was focus. A razor-sharp clarity that only shows up after your illusions have been shattered beyond repair. Ava wasn't just unfaithful, she was deliberate, strategic. And now I knew I wasn't just dealing with a broken relationship. I was dealing with corporate sabotage. By dawn, I had my laptop open, documents spread across the table, my email notifications muted. I began cross-referencing the files that were missing from the safe against the project logs on my work server. Dates, file names, file sizes, anything I could use to determine what had been taken. I still had the drafts, the outlines, but the final versions, the confidential specs, the investor memos, the analytics on emerging solar grid partners were gone. The USB Ava had taken wasn't just personal. It held the pitch book for McCoy Energy's entry into the green tech vertical, data I hadn't even shown my board yet. Losing that was bad enough. But if that data landed in the hands of a rival firm before I could move on it, I'd lose months. Maybe years. I'd look like I was following, not leading. Logan texted mid-morning. Logan, sent over everything I found on Trent. Check your email. Also, I think you need to talk to Ava's dad. He attached a report. Trent Ramsey wasn't just an opportunistic con man. He was a ghost with a pattern. 2 years ago, a boutique firm in Colorado folded after a leak involving one of its junior partners, an inside job. No formal charges were filed, but Trent had been flagged as a close personal associate of the accused. Then he disappeared from LinkedIn. Re-emerged 6 months later in Miami. Then Austin. Then LA. Now here. He was always a few steps ahead of the damage. But this time I wasn't going to let him run. Logan's note ended with one line, and guess who's listed as a new consultant at Green Arrow Capital? Ramsey. Started last month. My heart pounded. I felt sick. Green Arrow was one of McCoy's oldest rivals. Sleek, aggressive, and funded by people who didn't care how they won, just that they did. I'd beaten them out of a wind farm contract last year. Ava had toasted with me that night. Told me she was proud. Told me I was finally getting the recognition I deserved. Was that the night she started plotting? I didn't know. But I knew what I had to do next. I called Charles Monroe. Ava's father. We weren't close. Not really. He was powerful, respected, and always a little distant, the kind of man who wore tailored suits to weekend barbecues. But he liked me. Or at least, he pretended to. He referred me to some serious partners after Ava and I got engaged. Helped open doors I could never have unlocked alone. I dialed his number. Ethan, he said, sounding pleasantly surprised. How's everything? I didn't answer that. I need to talk to you. It's important. Business-related. He paused. Where? Your office. Now. It was a bold move, but I didn't have time for protocol. He didn't argue. Be here in 30, he said. Monroe Development's headquarters was quiet when I arrived, all marble floors and glass walls, sterile and immaculate. Charles's assistant let me in without hesitation. I walked into his corner office, closed the door behind me, and placed a thick folder on his desk. Charles looked confused. What's this? Proof, I said. Of a breach. He opened it, flipping through the pages, bank transfers from Ava's joint account to Trent Ramsey, *TS of the Palm Springs hotel reservation, the security footage stills of Ava entering his apartment, and the metadata trail from the missing files. Charles's face didn't move for a while. He just stared, eyes scanning, jaw tight. When he finally looked up, he looked tired. You're sure about this? Yes, I said. Logan ran Ramsey's background. He's dirty. Ava helped him steal files from my firm. Confidential projections. A full pitch book. It's all gone. Charles leaned back, rubbing his temples. I vouch for you, he said. I put your name in rooms that matter. I know, I said. That's why I came to you. He stood, pacing slowly behind his desk. I trusted her, he said, almost to himself. I raised her better than this. I didn't reply. Then the door slammed open. Trent. He stormed in, voice raised, face flushed. You son of a bitch. Behind him, Ava trailed in, pale and wide-eyed. Trent, stop it. What the hell did you tell him? Trent barked, pointing at me. You think you can smear me? Charles stepped between us. Trent, back off. Don't act like you don't know what this is, Trent growled. He's just bitter because she left him. She didn't leave me, I said. She betrayed me. There's a difference. Trent stepped forward. You don't get to come into our lives now. Then he saw the folder on the desk. His expression changed. Fear, not rage. His eyes darted from the bank transfers to the photos. He knew exactly what he was looking at. You think this means anything? He said. You have no idea how this world works. You're just some mid-tier Boy Scout. That's when Ava finally spoke. her voice barely above a whisper. "Trent." He turned to her. Her hands were shaking. "You didn't tell me you were selling the files." Trent blinked. "What? You said it was just to get a jump. To beat the street. You said it wasn't illegal." Charles's voice cut through the room. "Did you leak my name too?" Trent stepped back. "I never. I want you out," Charles snapped. "Now." "Charles, don't be stupid. I said out." Security arrived less than a minute later. Trent tried to argue, but he saw the folder again and folded. He didn't look at me as they dragged him out. Ava stood frozen, her face pale, her mouth slack. I stared at her. She didn't speak, didn't defend, didn't cry, just watched Trent disappear. Charles sank into his chair. "I'll handle the lawyers," he said. "Thank you," I replied, already heading for the door. Ava tried to stop me. "Ethan." I turned to her. For a moment, I saw the person I thought I'd loved. The version she let me see. The one I proposed to. But that person never existed. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "Not an explanation. Not an apology. Just silence." She didn't follow. She didn't beg. She sat down beside her father and put her head in her hands. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. For the next 24 hours, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, emails, text messages. Not just from Ava, but from Trent's contacts, lawyers, and even a Green Arrow PR rep who wanted to clarify misunderstandings. I ignored them all. I wasn't interested in statements or explanations. I had already lived through the truth, and now I was handling the fallout. Logan handled the security review of my firm. He found traces of Ava's laptop accessing a shadow folder on our shared server the day before her so-called spa weekend. She'd exported everything. Not just my pitch book, also contact lists, ROI projections, private investor notes. It wasn't amateur snooping. It was espionage. But here was the thing no one expected. I didn't panic. I didn't flinch. I acted. That morning, I filed an internal breach report and looped in McCoy Energy's legal team. We started the process of freezing our current partnerships until a full review could confirm what had been compromised. I issued a statement, calm, clear, professional. "We are conducting a security audit to protect our clients and our future." The board backed me. Logan's findings helped. So did the timing. Green Arrow had just lost a major client after a leak. Ava and Trent were now radioactive in corporate circles. But I wasn't done yet. There was one person I still owed a conversation to. One more piece to put in place. Charles Monroe. I called him again and asked for a follow-up. This time, not at his office. "I'd rather it be private," I said. He didn't hesitate. "Meet me at the family estate," he said. "It's quiet there." The Monroe estate was an hour outside the city. Gated. Surrounded by cypress trees and marble lion statues. It looked like a compound built for old money and secrets. I'd been there twice before, once for Ava's birthday, once for a Monroe Foundation gala. But this time it felt different. Heavier. Charles greeted me in the library. Fireplace lit. Scotch in hand. The look on his face told me everything. The last few days had aged him years. "I read your deposition," he said. "Your brother's report too." I nodded. "You were right," he added quietly. "About all of it." I sat across from him. "I'm not here for revenge or compensation. I just want the truth laid bare." Charles took a sip of his drink. "She hasn't spoken much since that day. I think she's realizing the full weight of it." "I hope so," I said. "But it doesn't change what she did." "No, it doesn't," he agreed. The silence between us was oddly peaceful, like two generals who had already fought the war and were now just counting the cost. Then the front door burst open. Raised voices echoed from the hallway. Then footsteps. Trent. He stormed into the library like a hurricane. Eyes *T, shirt wrinkled. He looked unhinged, like someone who had gone too many hours without sleep or reason. "You think this is over?" he shouted, pointing directly at Charles. "You think you can erase me? After everything I gave you?" Charles didn't flinch. You gave me nothing but embarrassment. You're nothing without me. Trent snapped. I was the one who found the Brazil contract. I was the one who pitched the East Coast wind grid. You stole it. I interrupted, my voice cold. Trent turned to me, fury in his eyes. You smug bastard. You think you're the victim here. No, I said. I was the victim. Now I'm just the cleanup crew. He moved fast. Too fast. I saw it before anyone else did. The flash of silver from the desk. A letter opener. He grabbed it and lunged. Not at me, but at Ava, who had just stepped into the room behind us. You lied to me, he screamed, charging her. You used me. You were never going to run away. You said you loved me. She froze. Her back hit the wall. I didn't think. I moved. I tackled him mid-swing, slamming us both into the floor. The letter opener clattered across the hardwood. Trent thrashed beneath me, wild with rage, but I pinned him with my knee and grabbed his wrists. Don't move, I growled. You're done. Charles called for security. Ava, still against the wall, slid to the floor, shaking. Not crying. Just silent. Like her whole system had short-circuited. Within minutes, 2 guards pulled Trent off the floor and restrained him. He didn't fight anymore. Just stared at Ava with eyes full of betrayal and disbelief. You promised me, he muttered, dazed. You said we'd burn it down together. The guards hauled him out of the room. Silence. I stood and looked over at Ava. She hadn't spoken a word. Her hands trembled. Her lip was split from where she must have hit the wall. She looked nothing like the woman who'd smirked at the camera footage that night. Now she looked empty. Charles finally broke the silence. You should go, he said to me. I'll handle the rest. I nodded. As I turned to leave, Ava's voice broke the silence. Soft. Barely audible. Ethan. I paused. Didn't look back. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. I turned my head slightly, just enough for her to see the edge of my profile. But you meant for it to begin. She didn't deny it. That night, I drove in silence. No music. No podcasts. Just the hum of the tires on asphalt and the echo of adrenaline still leaving my bloodstream. What happened in that library wasn't just violent. It was a mirror. A final confirmation of who they were. And who I wasn't. I wasn't someone who lied to win. I wasn't someone who we *P***nized trust. I wasn't someone who destroyed for sport. I was someone who had been used. And I had survived. The next morning, my inbox held a single message from Charles. Subject, thank you. Ethan. The board met last night. Trent's name is off every ledger. Every trace of him will be scrubbed. The firm is yours to work with if you choose. We owe you more than we can repay. C. Monroe. I stared at the message for a long time. It was the offer of a lifetime. But I already knew my answer. The offer from Charles Monroe sat in my inbox for days. A top executive role. Full autonomy. More money than I'd ever made and the chance to lead a division built entirely on my ideas. It was everything I'd worked toward, just under the wrong name. I stared at the email one last time and archived it. I couldn't accept. Not because it wasn't a good opportunity, but because it came tethered to a world I no longer trusted. Ava's fingerprints were everywhere, even if she was gone. I needed something clean. Something mine. So I did what I never thought I would. I started over. Within 2 months, I launched McCoy Integrity Partners, a small but focused consulting firm designed to help startups in renewable energy and sustainable development avoid exactly the kind of manipulation I just escaped. No boardrooms with secrets. No polished liars. Just clarity and trust. To my surprise, Charles became my first client. He transferred a portion of his company's green portfolio into my care, no strings, just a quiet sign of respect. Maybe even remorse. I didn't ask why. I took the work and did it well. Ava called once, then texted twice. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything left to say. What we had wasn't paused or wounded, it was gone. And I didn't miss it. What I missed, honestly, was peace. And that's what I was starting to rebuild. 3 months into my firm's launch, I started working on a project involving clean water tech in underserved communities. It was a partnership between private investors and a nonprofit. I recognized one of the nonprofit reps from the name on the email chain, Sierra Monroe. Ava's sister. The last time I'd seen Sierra had been at a family fundraiser a year ago. She'd always seemed different, quieter, more grounded. While Ava was the spotlight, Sierra was the foundation. We'd never spoken much beyond greetings. But now our emails turned into meetings and our meetings turned into long, productive conversations. She was sharp, ethical, unapologetically honest. And she had been the one to hand over the last bits of evidence that helped the case against Trendstick. The lawyers told me that. One evening after a long day on site, Sierra and I grabbed coffee. What started as small talk drifted into personal ground. She spoke gently about her disappointment in Ava, the shame it brought to the family, and how she'd always sensed something wasn't right but didn't have the proof. I just wanted to do the right thing, she said, stirring her coffee. Even if it meant losing family. I nodded. Sometimes losing the wrong people is the only way to protect yourself. Over time, we worked together more. Co-wrote proposals. Visited field sites. Shared late-night calls that drifted from data sets to old movies. And something shifted. Not all at once and not with urgency. But something real. Something I hadn't felt in a long time, trust. A quiet kind, born not from charm or adrenaline but shared purpose and mutual scars. One evening, we wrapped a project and met for dinner. Nothing fancy, just a patio table under string lights. She raised her glass to me, smiling softly. To new beginnings, she said, built on honesty. I clinked mine gently against hers. To learning the difference between what's real and what just looks good in photos. And for the first time in too long, I didn't feel like I was looking back. I was finally moving forward.